Greetings, YouTube. This is going to be a rather geeky discussion about the Dungeons & Dragons game. So if you're not a player, you might want to stop now. Anyone who has watched a number of my videos knows I love weapons. And one of the best places to see cool weapons are role-playing games. Science fiction, fantasy, steampunk, post-apocalyptic, even modern settings, they all have cool weapons references. I've even bought gaming books just because they had cool pictures in them. I'm that geeky. And one of the reasons I love them is because they can really go into unusual areas. Like in science fiction games, you can have things like Klingon or Vulcan weapons. In fantasy games, you can have like Elven weapons. And for example, this right here is a spear I drew last night, which is an Elven weapon designed on a leaf. You can have Dwarven weapons, lots of axes and blunt things for smashing goblins, which I think are cool. I enjoy seeing how other people interpret weapons. The one thing I expect all of the weapons illustrations I ever look at to do is to make them look functional. Even if they're wacky, out there, bizarre, strange, very stylistic, they need to look like they would function. And the Dungeons & Dragons game that came out in 2000, the 3rd edition, has my favorite thing I love to hate. The most absurd design I've ever seen, my favorite whipping boy, the spike chain. Now, there are real-world chain weapons. The motorcycle chain used in the 50s and 60s by biker gangs. The Menriki Gasari, which is a weighted chain about 6-9 feet long, used in Japan. The Rante, which was an Indian design that used kind of a throwing star about yay big on the ends to allow you to have slashing attacks. All of them are real-world weapons. Even the flail and the classic Morning Star are a weight attached to a shaft by a flexible chain, rope, leather thong, something like that. So such weapons really do exist. I don't argue that. But the spike chain is designed, and it has actual spikes sticking out of chain links. So I want you to imagine that this weapon is about 12 feet long, and I want you to imagine that the two 4-foot sections at the ends have little chain links, and sticking out of the little chain links are spikes. So that when you slide your hand down the chain links to hold the weapon and use it, you drive the spikes into your hand, lacerating yourself and turning your hand into hamburger. Or handburger in this case. It's dumb. Now the weapon does disarm and tripping attacks, which makes sense. Chain weapons are good at this. The weapon also allows you to hit a foe next to you, because the game uses a 5-foot battle grid, so people within those 5-foot squares next to you are considered adjacent. And it also lets you hit targets that are 10 feet away, and a weapon that's 12 feet long, and a chain weapon should allow you to do that. Swing it, you pay it out of your hand, you hit the guy over there, and you pull it back and hit the guy next to you. It's a very dynamic martial arty kind of fighting style. Makes sense, except for the fact that spike chain has spikes sticking out of the links, turning your hand into handburger. But as one of the features of the D&D game, the only weapons that function normally underwater are piercing weapons, which makes sense. Spears and tridents and such are the only weapons in the real world that function underwater correctly. There's a reason that spear guns are designed the way they are, because a thrusting straight line attack is the only effective way to move something through water. You can't swing your arm, you can't punch well underwater. But because the spike chain does piercing damage, the spikes, remember, and spikes are pointy things, the spike chain will function underwater effectively within the D&D game by the rules as written. So you're swinging a chain like this underwater, and it works. That's dumb. And also, the weapon allows you to finesse it. And what finesse means is that within the game rules, you can apply your dexterity bonus as opposed to your strength bonus to a weapon because it's particularly dexterous. It's a weapon designed like a foil that's all about wrist movement, all about hitting the opponent in the right spot at the right time. It's a 12-foot piece of chain. It's not finessable. Okay? There is no way to finesse it, even if you weren't turning your hand into handburger. This weapon is a demonstration that the people who designed it, or the person that designed it, has never held a weapon. Has never even looked at a weapon reference book. Ever. I would give this person a weapon reference book if I knew who it was that invented this item, because it's dumb. Now, some people on forums have said, well, you're exaggerating the way that it's described as compared to the way it's drawn. Well, here's the thing. Every single person they ever hired to draw this weapon has drawn it with spikes sticking out of the links that would turn your hand into hamburger. I've even seen an image that showed someone using one whose hand was bleeding while he's using it. So at least that illustrator understood how dumb this weapon is. Now, there's no reason you can't have chain weapons in the game. Not at all. I have them in my games. But you're never going to see the spike chain in my game because the spike chain is stupid. The spike chain is the kitchen sink weapon. It does everything. If such a weapon actually existed in the real world, they would have been in every single military arsenal on the planet. But the spike chain doesn't exist. It can't exist because it wouldn't work. Just like mercurial weapons that have tubes of mercury inside sword blades. That's a great way of getting yourself heavy metal poisoning and breaking your sword the first time you hit something. Or a dire flail, which is a solid shaft with 2 flails at the end. So when you swing it, you have 2 counter-rotating weights, which is a really lovely way of smacking yourself in the back of the skull. Again, it's dumb, and it shows that the person that came up with the idea doesn't have any idea how you actually use a weapon. Just watch some YouTube videos of martial arts people. Okay? That's all you gotta do. Take you 5 minutes to figure out how you actually use a weapon. Any weapon. You can find YouTube videos on pretty much anything. So yeah, this is a dumb weapon. I realize that I'm a little obsessive about this, but weapons are important to me. It's what I sketch. It's one of my hobbies. I have more weapons reference books than the city library or the local branch of Barnes & Noble. Alright? They're important to me. And I think that people who design them and put them into a book that sees print should take the little extra effort to make sure that they make sense, even if they're a fantasy design. I don't think it's too much to ask for craftsmanship when someone produces something for public sale. So yeah, the spike chain, it's dumb. 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 So anybody that wants to flame you on this one, feel free, because I'm not changing my opinion.